Hey everyone, tonight's story is a little darker than usual, a little bloodier, but still slow, strange, and maybe a bit too real. You've probably heard of 1,000 ways to die. Well, history says that number's laughably low. Try tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe more. Because if there's one thing ancient Earth was good at, it was killing us in creative, brutal, sometimes downright theatrical ways. Shark attacks before metal tools existed. Children surviving amputations in caves. Burials gone horrifyingly wrong. And murder victims sinking slowly into tar, alone. So, if you're into sleep-friendly storytelling that drifts somewhere between nightmare fuel and natural history, you're in the right place. And if you actually enjoy what I do here, consider liking and subscribing to support me. It really helps this strange little project keep going. Now, lay back, dim the lights, and try not to think about how lucky we are to live now, because tonight, you're going back to a time when death came in all kinds of terrible forms. You wake up before dawn. The air is already wet with salt, thick with the scent of rotting kelp, and buzzing with the insect language of summer. Your hands know the motions before your mind does, pulling on woven netting, checking the barbed point of your spear, cinching the strap across your chest. You are Swomo 24, though no one calls you that. Names don't matter yet, only fish. The boat rocks softly against the reeds, tethered by knots learned in childhood. Your people, the Jomon, are some of the world's first fishers, first potters, first wanderers of these islands. But this morning, you're not thinking about legacy. Just the tide. Just the breakfast still swimming below. As the sun pulls itself over the spine of the hills, you paddle out. The sea is quieter than usual. No birds, no chatter. Just the slow slap of water against your vessel and the growing tightness in your stomach. Hunger, probably. You're waist deep in the water when it begins. Maybe you're hauling up a net. Maybe you're distracted by a thrashing silver catch. You don't see it. You don't hear it. You only feel the first bite. A flash of pressure, like the ocean itself, grabbed your leg and tried to pull you under. Then pain. Not sharp, blunt, total, swallowing your whole body in seconds. You thrash. Your spear slips from your hand. You try to scream, but only salt fills your throat. Something is tearing you open, again and again, methodically, not like it hates you, like it doesn't care. One bite takes your left foot, another your hand. The water turns thick and dark around you. Your ribs are no longer a cage but a memory. Your organs come loose like spilled shells. Your body keeps trying to fight. You kick, you claw, but it's not a fair fight. When they pull you from the water, if you can be called you anymore, you are nearly unrecognizable. Your people lay your remains out under the trees, wash them with careful hands. They mourn you. Then they bury you, not with fanfare, but with familiarity. The sea takes what it wants. They know this. 3,400 years later, your bones are found again. Swomo 24, they call you now. The 24th skeleton recovered from Tsukumo shell mound off the Seto Inland Sea. They catalogue you. Measure the gashes in your ribs, your arms, your pelvis. At first, the scientists think it was a massacre. Metal blades, maybe, or some cruel new tool. But the Jomon had no metal. There are 790 wounds. 790. Cuts deep enough to score bone. V-shaped. Radiating outward from the limbs. Some clustered near joints. Some clean through flesh and tendon. Too many to be war. Too surgical to be a scavenger. And then someone notices. These wounds match modern shark attacks, specifically tiger shark or great white. You are no longer a mystery. You are a data point. The world's first confirmed shark attack victim. Congratulations. They learn things from you, even now. The pattern of the bites shows you were alive when it began, thrashing, resisting, losing, your missing foot and hand, defensive wounds. You tried to stop it. That ruled out scavenging. The burial site said something more. You were brought back, which meant you weren't alone. A boat, a group, fishing. Someone went into the water. Maybe you dove in after a snagged line. Maybe you speared a wriggling fish and had to follow it. Maybe you liked the cool. But the fish bled, and the sea whispered. The shark didn't stalk you. It didn't sniff around. It struck fast from below, the way they still do. And by the time your companions realized what was happening, it was over. All they could do was pull you back, your guts in your lap, your heart, perhaps, still trying to beat. Then nothing. They buried you with the others, not near the ocean, but inland, away from the water that turned on you. Maybe they told stories about it. Maybe they carved your name into something that rotted away centuries ago. Your body told us everything. Where the shark bit, how deep, how fast. Your ribs broken, caved, your chest emptied. A strike to the thigh that went through muscle to bone. The kind of death that leaves no doubt. The Jomon knew sharks. Their art shows them. Hammerheads curling through clay, tiger sharks with mouths wide. This wasn't new, just unlucky. Back then, sharks were more numerous. The oceans less poisoned. The food chain intact. You weren't the first human to be eaten by a shark, but you were the first one we could prove. And that matters, somehow. Because even today, with sonar and steel boats and wetsuits, we still fear what you felt, the sudden, silent violence of nature. Your death is old, but not gone. Sharks still swim off the coast of Japan. The water still turns red. We like to think we've escaped the ancient ways of dying. But every time someone wades into murky water, they carry your memory. Not your name, maybe, but your silence. You died doing what humans have always done. Feeding yourself, risking just enough to survive. And sometimes just barely too much. But not every ancient death was so swift. Not every ending came with teeth. Sometimes, the worst thing wasn't being devoured by a force of nature. It was being kept alive just long enough to suffer differently. Because while the ocean had its violence, the land had its own quiet horrors. Here, among the rocks and firelight, people didn't just die from the world. Sometimes, they tried to cut the death out of each other. And that's where you find yourself now. Not being hunted, but being held down. You are not in a hospital. There are no beeping machines, no antiseptic sting, no numbing agent, no clean sheets or trained professionals. Instead, there's moss under your back, and above you, the flicker of torchlight. Someone, maybe a mother, a hunter, a holy person with blood on their hands, is holding a sharpened stone. They are not smiling. You are 7 years old, and your leg is dying. This is Borneo, 31, 0 years ago, and you, impossibly, are going to survive the world's oldest known amputation. They hold you down. The stone comes down. The pain, at first, is beyond anything you've ever known. Then it becomes noise. Then it becomes nothing. You wake up later. How much later? Who knows? And the leg is gone. What remains is withered, child-sized, blackened in places, but clean, not chewed, not ragged. The people who did this to you may not understand bacteria, but they know how to keep rot at bay. Somehow, the wound is healing. You will live another 10 years, maybe more. You'll grow up with one leg in a mountain world that doesn't care. You'll crawl through cliffs, hobble around wet ledges. You'll rely on others, maybe a sibling, a parent, a quiet older friend who walks behind you, carrying what you can't. In your tribe, compassion is survival. You are a living miracle, though nobody calls you that. The ground hurts, but it always has. Thousands of years later, you are someone else. This time, you are European, Neolithic. It's cold again, and you are on your back once more. People are gathered around you, but they're not here to help your leg. They're staring at your head. You have been chosen, or cursed. You are about to undergo one of humanity's first known surgeries, trepanation. There are many theories about why this happens. Maybe your seizures scared the village. Maybe your headaches wouldn't stop. Maybe you've been having bad thoughts. Or perhaps a war club cracked your skull and they're trying to fix it. But fix isn't quite the word. What they do is carve, scrape, drill. A sharpened rock, or maybe a shell, grinds into your forehead. There is no sleeping through this. You hear it before you feel it. The dull vibration of bone under pressure. Then it's hot. Then it's pain, in a way that has no shape, no sound, just endless screaming behind your eyes. They scrape a hole through your skull, careful, hopefully, not to touch the brain. Blood pours. You bite down on leather, or wood, or nothing. Somewhere along the way, you stop moving. If you're lucky, you wake up. Most don't. Only about 40% of the skulls show signs of healing, which means the rest of them died on the mat. Maybe it was the shock, or the bleeding, or the infection that came later. Nobody will ever know. But here's the strange part. This wasn't rare, not even close. In some Neolithic sites, like one in France, up to 1 in 3 skulls bear the mark of the drill. And they aren't just adults. Children, even toddlers, were subject to it. Heads opened like fruit, patched up with bone and luck. In a world with no anesthetic, no antibiotics, and no understanding of neuroanatomy, this was considered medicine or ritual, or both. Sometimes people had multiple holes, which means they survived it more than once. Let's zoom out for a moment. Surgery is one of the oldest forms of hope and fear and desperation. When nothing else works, we cut. Even before we understood how blood moved, or that germs existed, or that a bone could knit itself back together, we cut. You survived because someone believed you could, but it was always a gamble. In the case of that child in Borneo, the ancient surgeons succeeded, where even modern ones sometimes fail. Around 30% of amputations, even today, can result in infection, yet this one didn't. There's no gangrene in your leg stump, no necrosis, just a smooth scar where pain used to be. Maybe they boiled the tools, maybe they packed the wound with herbs, maybe they just got lucky. But for you, the world changed. You now walk half the speed of others. You become adept at hopping, at crawling, at asking for help without saying a word. You learn to read faces. Are they tired of you yet? You sleep light. You eat last. But you are alive. And your skeleton will tell this story long after your name is forgotten. Trepanation tells another story. It tells of pain, of belief, of ritual, of terror masked as healing, and of people doing their best, even when their best involved putting holes in heads. What does it say about us? that we did this for headaches, or for spirits, or for revenge? What does it say about survival when one of the most widespread ancient procedures involved slicing through the very thing that makes us who we are? You don't remember the procedure. You don't remember what you screamed. But your skull, now bleached and quiet in a museum drawer, remembers everything. The hole is still there, and it's just large enough to whisper through. But you survived the cut. You outlived the fever. You endured a world that treated pain like weather, just something to get through. But survival didn't always guarantee dignity, because in the ancient world, even death could be weaponized. And sometimes, the final agony didn't come from injury or disease, but from someone else's hands, tightening the ropes. It's quiet, underground. You don't remember how long you've been down here. The air is packed with stone dust and the stink of old grain. You're curled in on yourself, legs tied to your neck, wrists bound behind you. You can't stretch. You can't turn. You can barely breathe. And above you, grindstones. Massive, heavy ones, pressed tight against your spine like they're trying to squeeze you into the soil. You're not dead. Not yet. But someone has made very sure that you won't stay that way for long. This is France. Roughly 500 years ago. You are one of 3 women. Only one of you will die peacefully. Archaeologists will find you later, folded like meat into a structure shaped like a silo. And when the sun hits it just right, on the solstice, it spills light directly onto the burial pit. Almost like a spotlight, like a warning. You're not a criminal, not a soldier, not a sacrifice in the poetic sense. But you are a symbol. They tied your legs to your neck, so tight that your own muscles began to crush your windpipe. A human garrote, a strangulation loop made of yourself. 2 of you were buried bound, trapped under slabs of stone, forced into poses that would make even the dead uncomfortable. And the 3rd? She lies above you, unbound, a symbolic overseer maybe, or just the final punctuation on a sentence made of suffering. This wasn't random. This was theatre. Now you're someone else. A few thousand years later, a continent away, but still very much in danger. You are Mora. At least, that's what they'll call you when they find your body. For now, you're just a girl. 17, maybe 19. Iron Age Germany. And everything hurts. Your back curves wrong. Your legs are swollen, inflamed. You carry water daily, for hours, through bog and brush and ice and summer flies. There's a tumour near the base of your skull. You don't know what a tumour is, of course. You just know the headaches won't stop. You stumble often. Sometimes your ears ring. Sometimes the world turns black and doesn't come back for a while. You've been hit in the head before. Twice, in fact. Healed fractures, but deep. Not an accident. Not a fall. Probably a fist. Or a club. Maybe from someone you knew. Maybe someone who loved you. And then one day you die. No clear cause, no blood, no break, but something takes you. And then something even stranger happens. Someone strips your body. No clothes, no jewellery, no offering. They place you in a peat bog, cold, wet, acidic, not gently, not like a proper burial, more like hiding. The bog accepts you anyway, and it preserves you, soft tissues, hair, even your skin's impression, browned and waxen. When they find you in 2000, you're in pieces, not from time, from machinery. Your body, chopped up by accident, then painstakingly sewn back together. Not even in death were you allowed to rest. And now you're yet another soul, yet another victim. It's 10,0 years ago. You're in what will one day be Los Angeles, but for now, it's just dry scrubland, sticky tar, and saber-toothed cats. And you? You're a woman, young, maybe 25. You've just become the first human to fall into the La Brea tar pits. Except you didn't fall. Your skull has a hole in it, not a small one, the kind that comes from something deliberate, a weapon, a rock, a fist with intent. They say it's murder. You were likely Chumash, though we'll never be sure. You probably had a rough life. Short, full of bad teeth from stone-ground food, calloused hands from endless labour. But it wasn't the world that killed you. It was someone else. And they didn't just kill you, they got rid of you, quietly, brutally, into the tar, where everything sticks. The same trap that caught wolves, cats, and mammoths now holds you too, so perfectly that your skull, jaw, and bones will one day be dug up almost intact. You'll be called the La Brea Woman, and though no one will know your name, you'll be remembered for the method. Because no matter what the motive was, jealousy, punishment, fear, you were left to sink. Slowly, asphyxiated in black. 3 women, 3 deaths, 3 ways of being discarded. None of them accidents, none of them natural, and yet completely normal for their time. Because in the ancient world, burial was not always about respect. Sometimes it was about sending a message, or hiding one. Sometimes it was about punishment, sometimes ceremony, and sometimes it was just another form of cruelty, one that didn't end when your heart stopped. You'd think it couldn't get worse. Buried alive, drowned in tar, broken by labour, silenced by ritual. But nature doesn't care about narrative arcs, and humans have always been surprisingly imaginative when it comes to suffering. What comes next isn't about symbolic pain or ceremonial cruelty. It's about the kind of death that crawls into your blood or waits patiently in the water. Because sometimes the worst way to die wasn't at the hands of others, but simply by existing in a world that wanted you gone. You think you're just scratching an itch, just a nip from some rodent in the underbrush. But within hours, your body begins to ache, your joints swell, your stomach twists. You can't eat. You can't move. The fever comes on like fire through dry grass, and your breathing grows short, sharp, wrong. You're 20 years old, a hunter-gatherer in what is now Latvia. You don't know it yet, but you are about to become history's first confirmed plague victim. It's 50 years ago, and your blood is now laced with a bacterium that will go on to kill over 100 million people. Yersinia pestis. Nobody understands germs. There is no quarantine, no antibiotics, no hope. You don't know where it came from. Maybe the flea, maybe the rat, but it moves fast. Lymph nodes swell, blacken. Your skin mottles. Your organs begin to shut down one by one. Maybe you die in the woods, alone. Maybe among your kin, fevered and coughing. There are no records, just your bones, and inside them, the preserved signature of the enemy, DNA from Y, pestis, dormant and damning. You die nameless, but you begin a legacy of death that echoes into medieval Europe and beyond. You are another man now, but your story is no better. This time, you live in the Atacama Desert, Chile, one of the driest, most sun-bleached places on Earth, and yet, somehow, you drown. Your bones are found buried above a bed of seashells in a round stone structure. No obvious injuries, no disease. But inside your bones, something strange. Diatoms. Tiny, microscopic algae. And they only get there one way. You inhaled seawater, a lot of it, enough that your lungs burst. Salt water flooded your bloodstream. It pushed through to your bone marrow. You didn't just drown, you suffocated as the ocean chewed through every chamber of your body. And that's not even the worst part. You weren't alone. 3 others died with you, another man, a woman, a child. But their bones tell a different story. No diatoms, no drowning. They died at the same time, but not the same way, which leaves a brutal mystery. A tsunami? An earthquake? A desperate mistake during a coastal dive? Or something even more human? Conflict? Hunger? Bad timing? What we do know is your life was already hard. Your knees and legs are deformed from squatting. Your arms battered from years of swimming and rowing. Your bones whisper of chronic anemia, likely from parasites, tapeworms maybe, from undercooked fish. You spent your life near the sea. And in the end, it took everything from you, one final gulp at a time. You want strange? Let's talk about trepanation again. But this time, en masse. Welcome to France, 500 BCE. You're not the exception anymore. You're the norm. 1/3 of the people in your community walk around with holes in their skulls. Some survived, some didn't. The tools are crude: flint, bone, shell. The methods are inconsistent. The pain is universal. Maybe it was spiritual. Maybe it was the cure for migraines, seizures, head trauma. Or maybe it was a way to mark the touched, those who thought or acted differently. One thing's for sure. You don't want to wake up with someone scraping your head open for a headache. And yet, somehow, it worked. Sometimes. But even that isn't as brutal as what comes next. You're not even a person anymore. You're food. During the Neolithic period, cannibalism wasn't myth. It was a menu item. Whole communities reduced to butchered remains. Skeletons found with cut marks, cracked for marrow, burned and scattered like waste. Sometimes it was starvation. Sometimes ritual. Sometimes just violence. You can see it in the bones. Skulls turned into bowls. Ribs split open. Jawbones with teeth removed, maybe for necklaces. And while modern humans still harm each other, it's rare to eat what you've killed. Not so back then. You don't want to keep going, but history isn't done. One mass grave after another, dozens of people, men, women, children, all killed and buried at once, bludgeoned, burned, shot with arrows, dismembered, not in war, just because. Over 100 such sites have been found, from Europe to Asia, from deserts to wetlands, from the end of the Ice Age through the Iron Age. And while modern civilization is far from perfect, it is, statistically speaking, less inclined to club you to death and feed your body to the fire. The past wasn't noble, it wasn't peaceful, it wasn't poetic. It was teeth and stone and silence. It was pain stretched out over decades. It was diseases unnamed and untreated. It was violence passed off as ritual and survival as an accident. You are lucky to be here, lucky to have never woken up to your own autopsy, or drowned in a desert, or watched a loved one dragged into a bog. Maybe the takeaway isn't fear, but gratitude. You exist in the future. After 1 million deaths, after all the failed experiments in staying alive. And yes, things are still hard. But today, you can die with a name, with medicine, with someone holding your hand. In the ancient world, you rarely got any of that. You've seen the 1,000 ways humans once died. Skulls drilled open, limbs torn by sharks, buried in tar, or bound beneath stone. But sometimes history doesn't kill with horror. Sometimes it just shrinks. So now we step away from blood and bone trauma and into something stranger. You'll still be hunted, still fragile. But this time, your danger isn't just violence, it's scale. Welcome to a world where humans were tiny, the predators were towering, and survival meant ducking under wingspans and sidestepping fangs. Welcome to Flores. Welcome to the age of the hobbits. You wake up with your back pressed to stone. The cave is still dark, damp, familiar. You hear your companions breathing in the shadows. 3 of them, maybe 4. You're not sure who's still here. Not everyone makes it through the night. Your feet slap against the cave floor as you rise, bare, broad and flat. They're wide enough to carry you across slick rock and moss, but not fast, never fast. Your knees stay bent as you walk, always lifting high. It's not a choice, it's how you're built. Small legs, high steps, like you're constantly climbing stairs in a world that wasn't made for your size. You are Homo floresiensis, the little lady, the little man, the island hobbit, 3'6", give or take, 55 pounds of fur, muscle and wariness. You've never met a Homo sapien, but if you did, they'd tower over you, they'd stare, they'd whisper, they'd probably laugh. But they're not here. Not yet. What is here is your island. Flores. It's not large. Maybe half the size of Vancouver Island. Rugged, jungled, dotted with caves that double as homes, traps, and graves. You don't know that it's isolated. You don't think in those terms, but it is. This place has been cut off from the rest of the world for longer than anyone will ever remember. Even when the oceans pull back, Flores stays surrounded by water. Deep water, unswimmable, unwalkable, a moat with no bridges. And yet, somehow, someone made it here. Maybe it was a raft. Maybe driftwood and desperation. Maybe a storm. But whoever came first, they stayed. And over time, they shrank. You've never seen your ancestors, but their bones tell a different story. They were taller, broader, heavier. But on this island, size became a problem. Food was scarce. Rivers were short and few. There were no massive herds to hunt, no fields to farm. Evolution doesn't ask politely. It shaves you down, bit by bit. You became smaller. Your whole species did. Scientists will call it insular dwarfism. They'll say it happens when big things get trapped in small places. Elephants turn into ponies. Raptors become parrots. And humans, well, they become you. But this shrinking wasn't just physical. You adapted in ways you can't feel. Your wrists curled, your shoulders rolled forward. Your brow juts out a bit more than most. Your chin never came in. You don't have the teeth of modern humans. Your canines are blunt, and your molars are efficient. Your brain is smaller than a grapefruit, but somehow it still does the job. No one understands how you fit fire in such a small head, or how you shaped flint, made knives, butchered prey with the same grace as your taller cousins. But you did. You do. And that makes some people uncomfortable. Because you're not supposed to be smart. You're supposed to be extinct. But here you are, living, thinking, cooking rats over a fire that crackles in a cave far from any textbook. When they find your bones later, they'll struggle. They'll wonder if you were sick. Deformed, a fluke. But then they'll find another one. And another. And another. 15 bodies, all small, all shaped like you, all buried in the same cave where you sleep now, laying bua. the belly of the mountain. Your bones will rest here long after your name is forgotten. They'll call the first one L-bone, the little lady of Flores. They'll poke at her skull and measure her femur. They'll argue. Are you a branch of Australopithecus, a stubby Homo habilis that got lost at sea, or just a shrunken Homo erectus? No one knows for sure. DNA won't speak. Every attempt to extract it will fail, eaten away by the dampness of your tomb. Your story will remain mostly mouthless, told in guesses and limestone. But for now, none of that matters. What matters is that the sun is up, and it's time to leave the cave. You shuffle forward on your broad, quiet feet. You check the traps you laid with obsidian blades. You sniff the wind for predators. You listen for the screams of distant birds, because on this island, even birds are not safe. You are small, but you are not helpless. Not yet. From a distance, you might look like us. A silhouette in firelight, a shadow hunched over a cooking fire. But up close, the illusion breaks. Everything about you is just off. Too small, too slow, too different. And yet, somehow, unmistakably human. To understand what you are, we have to study you like a puzzle made of mismatched parts. One piece sapien, another something far older. Because your bones tell a story stranger than most myths, and your body is its own kind of archaeology. You sit with your knees against your chest, sharpening a flake of stone. The others are out hunting, but you stayed behind. Your fingers are steady. You've done this 1,000 times. You don't think about your body as unusual, but it is. Start with your feet, flat, wide, and disproportionately large. They aren't built for speed, but for balance. Spread toes, long bones. Enough surface area to keep you upright on mud-slick forest floors or clambering over limestone ridges. But they also mean you have to lift your legs high when you walk, knees bending with every step. It makes for a strange, bouncy gait, like you're always marching over invisible roots. And those legs? More robust than ours, despite being shorter. Your bones are thick, your thighs strong, but your total frame still light. You weigh just about 55 pounds, give or take. Less than a modern 8-year-old, less than a large dog. You could be carried off if something wanted it badly enough. Your arms are even stranger. The humerus, the upper arm bone, is twisted at an odd angle. The head of it, where it meets your shoulder, sits lower, rotated differently than it would in a modern human. Your clavicle is short, your shoulder girdle sloped forward. It gives you a hunched appearance, as though you're perpetually shrugging or bracing against an unseen cold. It's subtle but unmistakable. You don't walk like us. You don't move like us. You're always slightly curled in on yourself, like evolution decided to save space wherever it could. Your hands? Capable. Fine motor control. But the wrists, odd again. Broad, unusual joint shapes. Some researchers will call them primitive. Others, simply unique. Your face doesn't help clarify things. There's a heavy brow ridge where modern foreheads now rise. Your jaw juts slightly forward, your chin nearly absent. The canines are dull, square, better for tearing root vegetables than intimidating rivals. And yet your molars are advanced, complex enough to suggest a varied diet. Meat, plant, maybe even cooked grains, depending on the season. But it's what's inside your skull that gets the most attention. Your brain is tiny. About 380 cubic centimetres. That's less than half the size of a Homo erectus brain. 1/3 the size of a modern human's, barely larger than a chimpanzee's. At first glance, it seems damning. Small brains mean small thoughts, right? But the shape of your brain tells a different story. It mirrors ours, wrinkles in the same places, compartments arranged just so, especially the frontal lobe. Brodmann Area 10, the part linked to complex reasoning, planning, and decision-making. Yours is nearly the same size as ours, and the proof is in your hands. Fire pits, charred bone, butchered stegodon remains, microblades, perforators, scrapers, tools designed with intention, precision, and memory. You remember where to strike stone to split it. You know which bones crack best to release marrow. You understand sequences, tasks, cause, and effect. You may not draw pictures on cave walls or sing stories under the stars, but you survive. You collaborate. You teach. In a world that tries to kill you daily, that's genius enough. And when the others return from the forest, they bring back more than meat. They bring tales. Of claw marks in tree bark, too high for any rat. Of feathers, long, black, and stained. Of a rustling in the grass that was too loud, too low, too slow. You listen quietly, shoulders still curled forward, your long feet tapping the floor like metronomes. You are not the strangest thing on this island, and soon you'll see why. You felt small before, among the trees, under the stars, in the silent weight of night. But that kind of small is spiritual, humbling, the kind you survive. What comes next is different. This is ecological smallness, predatory smallness. You aren't just short, you are, very suddenly, food. And the island around you is not some lush paradise. It's a zoo with the locks broken, a place where evolution got bored and let nightmares bloom. You wake to screaming. Not human, not quite. It echoes across the jungle in sharp, rattling pulses, like something metal dragged across stone, like laughter with too many teeth. It's morning on Flores, and the monsters are stirring. You crawl to the edge of the cave and peer through the curtain of vines. The world outside glistens with dew and danger. Nothing here is still for long. The leaves twitch, the air pulses. Something is always moving. Your feet touch the stone, cold, flat. The damp creeps up your legs as you crouch low and scan the forest for shadows that shouldn't be there. And then you see it. Tall, too tall. A bird, if you can call it that. It stands higher than you, over 5 feet tall. Long black legs rooted like stakes in the earth. A stork, but not the kind that delivers babies. Leptoptelos robustus. The robust one. The one that doesn't fly anymore, doesn't have to. Its wings, when extended, span 12 feet. But most of the time, it stalks on foot, like you, only faster. With claws. Its eyes catch yours. You freeze. It watches, calculates, then turns, uninterested for now. Its belly is already full. Something else died this morning. You exhale and shrink back into the rock. This is your reality. Flores is not your island. Not really. You live on it. But so do things that shouldn't exist. Things that belong in stories, told to scare children into silence. Things that don't mind eating something the size of a child. Like you. And the birds are just the beginning. There's another one. You don't know its name, but one day they'll call it a trigonioipis, a vulture bigger than you are. It nests in the high cliffs, bones littering the ledges beneath. Its wings whistle when it dives. You've seen it carry off animals not much smaller than yourself. You've seen it wait beside the dying, watching the last breath like a signal. It's probably watching now. You don't look up. Later, when the sun climbs higher, you venture out only a little, for roots, for fruits, for anything light enough to carry, but not so sweet it's already been stolen by ants or rats. You're halfway back to the cave when the smell hits you. Musky, metallic, like rot buried in hot fur. You crouch, your breath stills. It's close. You scan the brush, the trees, the edges of the trail, and then you see the tail. It drags behind a mass of scale and muscle, thick as your torso, lined with spines. You see the glint of teeth as it turns its head, nostrils twitching, a tongue flickers out, tasting the wind. Varanus komodoensis, Komodo dragon. Not a dragon like in stories. Worse. 10 feet long. 90 kilos of nightmare. It moves like a slow avalanche. Unstoppable. Inevitable. It doesn't need to run. It bites once and waits. Waits for the venom to work, for the wound to weep, for blood to leave you behind. And if you try to run, they follow. They smell the death before you die. They gather. 1 becomes 3. 3 becomes a feast. You back away, slowly. It doesn't chase. Not today, but your blood doesn't stop pounding for a long time. Back at the cave, you check your tools, sharpened flint, broken obsidian. Not much good against what's out there, but better than nothing. Then you hear another sound. Slithering. It's not loud. It never is. But it's everywhere, beneath the leaves, in the trees, sometimes in the cave. Snakes. Some are long enough to wrap around your whole body and crush your breath out before you can scream. Others need only a single strike. Venom that burns. Venom that stops your heart. You've seen them all. The spitting cobra, black eyes, hood flared like a warning. It spits venom across distance, aiming for eyes. If it blinds you, you're finished. The pit viper, coiled on a branch, waiting. Its strike is faster than thought. 1 bite, 1 fever, then dreams that don't end. The sea crate, striped like a warning flag. If you fish the wrong tide pool, you might find its fangs before your catch. But the worst? The python. 20 feet of silent hunger. Found 1 once, in a cave. Your cave. It hadn't eaten yet. You left. Everything wants to kill you. Even the water. Saltwater crocodiles wait in the mangroves, pretending to be driftwood. They aren't. They're older than memory, stronger than nightmares. Their jaws snap with the force of gods. You don't fish near the estuaries anymore, but something still pulls you to the edge of the forest. Food. Always food. The island doesn't feed you easily. You fight rodents for calories. Big rodents. Ones the size of rabbits, papagomies, speleomies, everywhere. Nesting in burrows, scurrying in trees. You trap them, skin them, roast them. Sometimes you share, sometimes you don't. And still, it's not enough. So you hunt bigger prey. Stegodon florensis insularis. Miniature elephants, still massive compared to you. 6 feet tall at the shoulder, weighing more than 10 of you stacked and shouting. But they have calves. And you have tools. You track them by broken foliage, mud prints, dung. You wait, you ambush. Spears jabbed under ribs, stones smashed against skulls, blood in the brush, screams that echo across the valley. You don't feel guilt, you feel relief. 1 kill means days of eating, firelight, warmth, safety. But nothing is ever safe. Sometimes you find bodies you didn't make. Stripped, clean, crushed, bones twisted, punctured. It could be birds, could be lizards, could be humans. Because even your own kind disappears sometimes. Not often, but enough to notice. You whisper about it when the fire is low, when the jungle hisses, when no one else is watching. Maybe they fell, maybe they ran, maybe something took them, and there was nothing left to find. And then you hear it, quiet footsteps, heavier than yours, unfamiliar in pattern. You hide, you wait, and when you peek out again, nothing. For now, you don't know how long you've lived here, but your people have walked this island for nearly 1 million years. They'll call that a temporal range, one of the longest of any human species. You call it home. You've outlasted storms, droughts, predators, and change. You know the trees, the stones, the paths that smell wrong, the caves that breathe too cold. You are not tall, not fast, not strong, but you are alive. In a world that grows monsters out of nothing, that alone makes you a legend. You've made it this far, through talons and venom, through teeth, drought, and 1 million-year struggle to stay warm, stay fed, stay together. Flores has never been gentle, but at least it was consistent. The monsters you knew, you could outrun. The predators you feared, you could avoid. But then one day, the danger came in the shape of something too familiar, something that looked almost like you, and that's when everything changed. You first hear them before you see them. Different footsteps, heavier, faster, upright, like yours, but longer, like something stretched by the sun. Their sounds don't match the rhythms of your world. They don't belong. And yet, somehow, here they are, on your island. At first, you don't know what to make of them. They don't roar like the storks. They don't stalk like the dragons. They carry things, tools, fire, noise. They walk without watching. They act like they own the ground. They hunt with coordination, with mettle. And worst of all, they stand tall. Taller than anything human you've ever seen. Homo sapiens. You don't call them that, of course. To you, they're just others. Big, loud, unnatural. They move through your forest like they've always been here. But they haven't. They've only just arrived, sailing across seas you've never crossed, from places you can't imagine. Their arrival, if measured later, will be pinned to around 50 years ago. But for you, it's just another morning turned wrong. You keep your distance at first, but it becomes clear they aren't leaving. And it becomes clearer still, they're not just competition, they're a threat. They burn parts of the forest to clear ground. They eat the same rats you do. They fish near the same waters. They build traps too wide for your prey. You find the remains, butchered, taken, wasted. Bones cracked open for marrow, like you've done, but with tools too clean, too perfect. You see fewer animals, fewer safe trails, more fire, more footprints. And then, the first body. One of your own, not taken by snake or dragon or cliff. A wound across the chest, too clean. A cut, not a bite. You smell iron, smoke. It wasn't the island that killed them. It was a person. And that changes everything. Your people have lived here for nearly 1 million years. You've watched stegodons shrink, watched birds grow massive, watched the world reshape itself. You didn't need to conquer it. You just needed to understand it. But these new arrivals, these Homo sapiens, they don't understand. Or maybe they just don't care. They reshape the forest to fit themselves. They don't adapt. They dominate. And slowly, the island begins to tilt. Rodents become scarce. Large birds go quiet. The Komodo dragons become bolder, feeding on scraps left behind by the newcomers. Your food, your tools, your paths all start to vanish. You still make blades, thousands of them, over generations. You still light fires. You still raise young, but everything becomes harder. Your caves, once safe, now feel watched. Sometimes the new humans get close, too close. You see their eyes in the brush. You smell their smoke on the wind. You find strange stones, strange footprints, strange bones in the places where your children used to play. And, one by one, your people stop coming home. Not all at once. That's not how endings happen. It begins with one clan, then another. Then the youngest stop speaking the names of the oldest. Then the fires in some caves go cold and never return. No one writes down the last day. The scientists who find your bones won't know the moment it ended. They'll see the gaps, the layers in the sediment where once there were blades, ash, and fire-hardened bone, then silence. They'll date your last known presence to about 50, 0 years ago, eerily close to when the first modern humans arrived. And they'll wonder if we killed you directly, arrowheads, spears, slashes across the ribs, or if we simply starved you out, competed too hard, too fast, too greedily. Or maybe it was more subtle. Maybe we brought disease, changed the ecosystem, spooked your prey, crushed your shelters. Whatever it was final. Because after we came, you were never seen again. When they uncover your remains in the 21st century, they won't believe it at first. A new human species, found in a cave on a remote Indonesian island, a full skeleton, tiny, strange. They'll think this must be a child, or someone with a disorder. Then they'll find more. 15 individuals, all small, all shaped like you. They'll call the first L-bone the Little Lady of Flores. She'll change textbooks, stir debates, create enemies, inspire books and cartoons and arguments and wonder. They'll nickname your people hobbits. The irony, you're shorter than Tolkien's hobbits in the movies, but exactly their height in the books, down to the inch. Even your feet, flat, broad and oversized, match the stories. But you weren't fiction. You were real. You were sharp, strange, ancient, and stubbornly alive for almost 1 million years. We don't know what you called yourselves. We barely know how you spoke. But we know you lived in caves, thousands of stone tools in a single site. We know you knew fire. We know you hunted creatures much larger than yourselves. Stegodons, rodents, birds. We know you used blades, sharpened bone, fire-hardened wood. And we know you walked this island for hundreds of thousands of years, until we showed up. And then, very quietly, you didn't. Sometimes, when people talk about your extinction, they treat it like a curiosity, as though it was inevitable, as though you were just a footnote on our path. But you weren't a mistake. You weren't a failure. You were a version of us that fit a different world, one that didn't require skyscrapers, or written language, or steel. You made it longer than most species ever will, until someone else decided they needed your island more than you did. And so now, you are a mystery behind glass. A model in a museum, a debate between academics, a curiosity in YouTube videos, a warning, perhaps, of what happens when a smaller version of humanity meets a larger one, and the world, as always, chooses the louder voice. We may never know exactly how it ended for you, but we know that it did. And we know that after you fell silent, no one on Flores ever saw your kind again. You've walked in small, strange footsteps. You've crept through jungles filled with dragons and stalked rats with fire and stone. But even hobbits had a sky. Even tiny humans could look up at stars. What happens when there are no humans at all? No mammals, no flowers. Just a world older than fear itself, a place where life still crawls, climbs, and gulps air that's slowly vanishing. Long before you, the earth blinked, and in that slow blink, nearly everything died. You wake up with your belly pressed to stone. It's not cold. It hasn't been cold for a long time. The sun has been hanging low and heavy for what feels like centuries, bleeding heat into every corner of the land. The wind doesn't carry scent anymore, just dust. You lick your jaws and taste nothing but grit. You are a Lystrosaurus. Not quite reptile, not quite mammal, not quite anything the world will remember correctly. You're about as long as a Labrador, shaped like a pig someone tried to build from memory. Your legs splay out like a reptile's, but your bones and lungs whisper of futures that will become mammals. You are a survivor, you just don't know what you're surviving yet. The year is 252 million BCE. Not that years matter anymore. You haul your bulk across cracked mud, searching for something green, leaves, roots, anything that still remembers how to grow. The land is mostly sand now, flat, orange, bleached like old bones. You used to smell moisture in the wind. Now there is only wind. But you're not alone. In the distance, something scuttles. A scorpion, maybe. Big, armoured. Everything here is armoured, even the trees. They've grown strange, tall, narrow, scaled instead of barked. Glossy needles instead of leaves. They don't belong in a forest. They belong in a dream. Or a fever. You push past a brittle shrub and freeze. Footprints, not yours. Gorgonopsid, the predator. It walks like a big cat, with the head of a Komodo dragon and teeth shaped like curved daggers. It doesn't just kill, it toys, stalks, waits until you stop watching. You glance at the sun, low, distant, simmering red. Then, at the wind, still. The Gorgonopsid is probably close. You don't run, you slink. You flatten your belly to the dust and pretend you're just a lump. A bad meal. A shadow. It works. Or maybe it's already full. You won't know until tomorrow. If there is one, the world is Pangaea now. One giant continent stitched together like the last dirty rug in a dying house. To the west, endless desert. To the east, more of the same. Dust storms roll across what used to be lakes. Rivers come and go like moods. Insects fly, but not far. Dragonflies, the size of hawks, skim the heated air, searching for prey they no longer recognize. The ocean is out there somewhere. You've never seen it, but you've heard the others talk. The marine things, fish with armor, squid with jaws. Trilobites still clinging to deep rock, coral reefs glowing in the shallows. Whole empires you'll never meet. Empires already cracking. There's something wrong with the sky. You don't notice it yet, but it's there. The sun is redder than it used to be. The heat stays longer. Nights don't cool. You sleep restlessly now. You wake with sores in your mouth, and the plants don't taste right anymore. Sometimes the wind smells like eggs, like rot. Volcanoes are erupting in a land far north. Siberia, they'll one day call it. But to you, it's just a place you'll never reach, and yet it's here already, in the air, in the wind, in the leaves that refuse to grow. The eruptions have no end. They don't boom, they bleed. For tens of thousands of years, the earth has been leaking. Basalt spills from the ground like black blood, covering the land in waves of stone. Forests vanish beneath fire. Rivers evaporate mid-course. It should feel apocalyptic, but it doesn't. It feels slow, tired. Like the planet is trying to lie down, you pass another Lystrosaurus, smaller, limping. It doesn't look at you. There's no point. It's not sick, not yet. But its eyes are dry and it's breathing too fast. That's the first sign. The second is the noise it doesn't make. No bleats, no warning. Just the slow shuffle of something that's already decided not to fight. You move on. Instinct pulls you south, toward water, or whatever's left of it. Along the way, you pass things the world won't keep. Dicynodonts, with curved tusks that click together like dying wind chimes. Small, scaly creatures that hop and skitter and vanish into cracks. Plants that grow in spirals, with leaves that cut if you brush them wrong. Everything here is holding on by accident. You find a stream, barely. The water is thick, warm. It doesn't move like it used to. It reflects nothing. You lap at it anyway, because there is no choice. It tastes like metal and memory. When night falls, the stars don't come out. Just a dull, flickering haze. Like someone forgot to put the sky back together. You sleep, eventually. Fitful. Head tucked under your leg, tail curled around your flank. Dreams of forests you've never seen. And then morning comes. Again. And you get up. Again, because what else is there to do? The extinction hasn't happened yet. Not fully, not all at once. You don't know you're part of it. You just know the trees have stopped dropping seeds. That the air tastes thinner. That nothing has bloomed in weeks. That even the gorgonopsid, when it returns, doesn't bother chasing you. Its ribs show now. Its tongue hangs low. It watches you for a while, then turns and limps away. You're both waiting for something you don't have a name for. Later, you find a body. Not killed, just still. No marks, no wounds, no blood. It died, sitting up, eyes open, looking at the horizon. You sit beside it, quietly. You don't eat it. You just stay. For a while, the wind shifts. For the first time in your life, it feels cold. Just for a second. Then warm again. Like the earth sighed. And then went back to sleep. You didn't notice the first death. Not really. Nothing screamed. Nothing collapsed in fire. It wasn't a meteor, or a flood, or a god. It was just less. Less green. Less noise. Less breath. You kept waking up, kept walking, but the world was no longer walking with you. And now, for the first time, the planet itself begins to feel tired. And when Earth grows tired, it forgets to breathe. You wake up with your nose in the dirt. Again, but this time, something's wrong. You open your eyes slowly. The air is still. The sun hasn't risen yet, and the sky is a dark, ash-coloured smear. You inhale, but the breath doesn't satisfy. It's warm, wet, heavy. You cough, but nothing comes out except dust. You are a synapsid, somewhere between reptile and mammal, still clinging to the shifting middle ground of evolution. Your kind was everywhere once. Now, even the silence feels crowded. The land around you hasn't changed, not exactly. It's still cracked, hot, and colourless. But the air, there's something in the air, something thick and invisible. You don't know it, but this is what the end of oxygen feels like. Thousands of miles away, the Earth is venting its fury. The Siberian traps, what will one day be a place on a map, a name on a paper, are splitting open. Massive volcanic eruptions spew gas into the sky with no real violence, just persistence. It's not the boom of disaster, it's the hiss. A slow, ceaseless exhale of carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and methane. These eruptions have been going on for millennia, but now they're accelerating. Lava bleeds across the land in sheets miles thick. Beneath it, older carbon stores, fossil fuels, coal beds, even ancient forests trapped in stone, are cooked, burned, released. The atmosphere, once a thin, breathable blanket, is now a clogged pipe. CO2's levels rise. The greenhouse grows unbearable. But it doesn't just heat the land, it changes the chemistry of the entire world. Out at sea, the ocean stops moving. Not all at once, but slowly, like a tide that forgets what it's supposed to do. Normally, surface waters sink as they cool, pulling oxygen down with them. Deeper waters rise in turn, cycling nutrients, life, breath. It's called the thermohaline conveyor, and it keeps the ocean alive. But now, the warmth stays. The difference between surface and deep water disappears. The conveyor grinds to a halt. The deep begins to suffocate. Oxygen is used up, but never replaced. Anoxic zones bloom like bruises in the dark. At first they're isolated. A trench here, a gulf there. But they grow, spread, merge. Entire ocean basins go silent. You are not a fish. You do not live in the sea. But the sea lives in everything. Plankton die. Coral reefs bleach and crumble. Mollusks float to the surface, shells gaping. The great trilobites, survivors of every extinction so far, finally vanish. And as marine food chains collapse, methane trapped in the seabed begins to rise. The methane isn't loud. It doesn't glow. It just leaks, bubbles of ancient gas, escaping into the sky like forgotten promises. Methane is more potent than carbon dioxide, and there is a lot of it. The Earth's fever spikes. The sun shines the same, but now it feels closer. You keep walking. You don't know why. Maybe you're following old paths. Maybe you're looking for something that still remembers your name. The trees are thinning, not just in number, but in body. They look skeletal now, branches bare, needles fallen, bark peeling like old scabs. You find one, cracked at the base, and press your head against it. It smells wrong. Sweet and sour, like something fermenting inside its core. You walk away. Later, you see a group of insects, winged, huge, once beautiful. They're grounded. They don't move as you pass. Their wings twitch in the dust, unable to lift. The air isn't rich enough anymore. There's not enough lift, not enough breath. You try to avoid stepping on them. You fail. They don't complain. The nights are longer now, not by time, by feel. You sleep, but it isn't restful. The sky never gets truly dark, just smudged, streaked with distant firelight from eruptions you'll never see. The stars have gone missing. One night, you wake up and realize you haven't heard birds in weeks. No clicks, no shrieks, no fluttering shadows in the canopy. Just wind. You go to drink from the stream again. It's thicker. Algae grows in mats across the surface. Fish float near the top, Alive, barely. You lap at the edge, but gag. The taste is off. Bitter, rotten. You leave, stomach empty. What's happening now has no word, no story to explain it. It's not war, not famine, not flood. It's thinning. A great, quiet undoing. In time, we'll call it the Great Dying. The worst extinction the planet has ever endured. Worse than the asteroid that will one day end the dinosaurs. Worse than any fire, flood, or freeze. This is not a singular blow. It is a long, slow choke. By the end, 90% of all species will be gone. But that's later. For now, you just walk. You pass another creature. You don't know what it is. You've never seen it before. It doesn't move. Not dead, just still. You circle each other warily, but neither of you have the energy to fight. There is nothing left to fight for. You sleep near it that night. When you wake, it's gone. You don't ask where. Somewhere, deep in the ocean, something moves. A jellyfish, a worm, a burrower, tiny, blind, without need for oxygen. It doesn't know about the sun, or the trees, or the gorgonopsids that used to rule the land. It just pulses and survives. Above, the sky is hazier than ever. You don't see the clouds anymore, just a flat ceiling of dust and poison. But the sun still burns through. It always does. You blink into it. You wonder how long it's been since it rained. The dust on your back is thick enough to leave prints in. You find a patch of moss, barely green. You eat it. It tastes like memory, like something the earth used to be. You don't know it, but you're already part of the fossil record. Your bones will be buried in ash and silt, pressed down, forgotten. Until someday, someone digs, and wonders why everything stopped breathing at once. But that won't be for hundreds of millions of years. For now, all you know is that breathing is getting harder, and silence is getting louder. By now, the dying has become routine. You don't count bodies anymore. You don't ask where the rivers went. You just walk and breathe, and try not to think about how shallow the breath has become. But under your feet, the ground has started to crack, and above you, the clouds aren't clouds anymore. The earth isn't just forgetting to breathe, it's beginning to burn. The wind is different today. It doesn't whistle, it rasps. You step outside your burrow and look up, blinking into what used to be a sky. It's orange now, reddish in places, like old blood on stone. You don't see clouds anymore, just a haze that never moves. The light feels thicker than the air. You can feel it on your skin, heavy, as if gravity has gained a new direction. Then you hear it, the crack, deep, subterranean. You press your belly to the dirt. It doesn't help. Far away, too far to reach but close enough to fear, the ground splits open. Not with drama, not with flame. Just a long, dry exhale of heat and ash. You're still on Pangaea, the one continent, the last stage. And the earth is about to sweep its arm across the whole thing. It starts in places you've never been. The forests, already withered, go first. Lightning from cloudless skies sets dead trees alight. The flames aren't fast, but they don't need to be. There's no rain to stop them, no green to slow them. Fire eats the world like it's starving. And, in many places, it is. The heat doesn't stay where it starts. It moves, crawls, seeps into everything. Peat bogs smoulder underground. Deserts flash into glass. Even rivers, those that remain, begin to steam. The air isn't just dry. It's acidic. Sulfur dioxide from the eruptions rains down in droplets, so sharp they score the leaves like blades. You don't understand the chemistry. You just know that the plants you used to eat now give you sores in your mouth. You try anyway. Hunger is louder than pain. The animals begin to move. Those that can still walk, still breathe, still hope. They travel in packs now, not for safety, but out of inertia. You walk together because you're all walking the same way, away. Always away. But there's nowhere to go. You find bones everywhere. Not picked clean, just abandoned. Creatures curled up like they were trying to sleep. Legs tucked under, heads turned to stone, eyes closed. Some of them look peaceful. You hope they were, but you don't believe it. You pass a tree on fire. Just one. There's no sound. The flames don't crackle. They hiss like steam from a wound. You don't stop to watch. You are not alone. There are still predators. The gorgonopsids are fewer now. Leaner. They move slower. Their eyes are rimmed with red. Their tongues drag. But they still stalk. Still kill. Only now, they don't always eat what they kill. Sometimes they seem to forget why they started chasing. Sometimes they just lie down beside their prey and never get up again. You see one by a stream once. It's drinking. The water is low, barely enough to wet its mouth. It sees you. You see it. But you both just stay, because neither of you have the energy. You both know the world is ending. You just don't know how to stop living yet. Insects vanish. First the flyers. Too fragile for the thin air. Then the diggers, nothing left to dig for. Even the ants disappear. One day there's a trail through the sand. The next, nothing. You remember when the sky was filled with wings. Now it's filled with dust. You pass a carcass, days old, untouched. There are no scavengers left. The ocean isn't any better. What remains of its surface is slick with decay. Dead plankton rot in slow spirals. Fish drift belly up, rolling like forgotten leaves. Jellyfish pulse blindly in chemical water. The ocean's surface boils in places. Near volcanic plumes, the heat is enough to cook what still floats. Below the surface, things are worse. Hydrogen sulfide bubbles up from the deep, poisonous, invisible. It smells like eggs, like old death, like the first warning that nothing here will survive much longer. Coral reefs dissolve into pale rubble. Shellfish vanish. The trilobites die. For real this time. One day, you stop walking. Not because you're tired, because there's nowhere left to go. The horizon is grey. The wind doesn't change. Even your instincts are quiet now. You sit, not even in shade. There is no shade. Just you. And the smell of something burning far away. You close your eyes. And for the first time in your life, you don't expect to wake up. But you do. You always do. And so you rise. And so you move. There's a pool ahead. You can smell it. Stale, but wet. You reach it by dusk. Lap the edge. It's warm. The water tastes like stone, but it's water. You drink, and then you see something across the pool. A shadow, something small, something crawling. You blink, and it blinks back. Something survived, something else. You don't know what it is, but you nod, and it nods back. The fires rage on, somewhere behind you. The sky stays grey, but something in the wind has changed. It's not cleaner. not cooler, but thinner, not dead, not alive, just suspended, like the world is waiting for something, anything, and so are you. You don't remember falling asleep. You don't remember dying. But if you listen closely, there's a hush. Where once there was heat, the air still smells like dust, but it no longer bites. And under the layers of soot and time, something stirs. It's not a rebirth, not quite. More like a quiet continuation. The earth has finished its long exhale, and now it breathes in. The silence doesn't scream anymore. It just settles. You are no longer the creature who fled from fire. That body, scorched, half buried, starved, is lost somewhere beneath 100,000 seasons of sediment. The shape of the world has softened. The contours of death are less sharp. You don't feel afraid anymore, but you don't feel much of anything. It's been 2 million years since the Permian ended. The extinction is over. The Earth survived, but just barely. There is no parade of return, no sudden green rush. Life returns the way moss creeps over stone, slowly, quietly. First, the things that never quite left, the burrowers, the scavengers, the overlooked. Like Lystrosaurus, it is the ugly king of a ruined world, broad snout, tusked jaws. A barrel-chested little brute with a pig's body and a reptile's posture. Once, it was a background character. Now, it is everywhere. And it's not hard to see why. Lystrosaurus eats anything green. It digs to escape the heat. Its lungs are efficient, better suited to the low-oxygen world. And above all, it doesn't mind being alone. That helps. In fossil beds, across what will one day be Antarctica, China, Russia, South Africa, India, the bones of Lystrosaurus are found in impossible numbers, sometimes entire bone beds, like mass graves where only one kind of creature was allowed in. For a while, an eerie, still while, it is the only large land vertebrate left. The oceans aren't much better. Gone are the reefs, gone are the trilobites, the corals, the great armoured fish. What's left is slime, bacteria mats, thin films of greenish decay that lap at the water's edge. But even here, there are survivors. Clams, mussel-like bivalves, simple, patient things that anchor themselves to nothing and wait. Species like Chloria spread rapidly, filling in the ecological holes left by collapse. Not because they're clever, because they're stubborn. It's a good time to be stubborn. And slowly, things begin to try again. Ferns first. They grow fast. They don't ask much. When the soot rains down and the sky darkens again, it is ferns that retake the empty ground. Then come the gymnosperms. Conifers, ginkgos, plants that don't need flowers or fruit, just wind and patience. They spread quietly, colonizing what's left of the forests. Forests. That word almost feels indulgent. What used to be great carbon-trapping jungles are now stunted, scraggly woods. But they're enough. Enough to hide in, enough to nest in, enough to become forests again, one day. And what of the predators? Few made it. The gorgonopsids are gone. Their saber jaws left no heirs. The great amphibians, the sail-backed synapsids, the bear lizards and nightmare amphibians, all gone. In their place, something new begins to slither up from the edges. Archosaurs, the ancestors of crocodiles and dinosaurs. At first, they are small, forgettable, but the extinction has cleared the playing field, and time favours the persistent. They evolve quickly, they fill roles left behind. They take to the water, to the trees, to the skies. The stage is set, the Triassic begins. The Earth does not heal cleanly. There are scars in the rocks, gaps in the fossil record, whole ecosystems that never return. Recovery is slow. It may take 5 million years, maybe 10, before biodiversity rebounds. Some say even longer. But there is movement, and where there is movement, there is life. The climate stabilizes, somewhat. CO2's levels fall. The atmosphere begins to find a new balance. The oceans begin to circulate again. Oxygen returns, though not all at once. It is still hard to breathe, sometimes. But it no longer kills you. From the ashes, the earth begins a new chapter. It is not better, just different. You, of course, are long gone. But something like you, like all the survivors, remains in the shape of jaws, in the coil of DNA, in the pressure of lungs built for thin air. The end Permian extinction was the worst in Earth's history. More than 90% of marine species, more than 70% of those on land, gone. But not everything. The story didn't end. It just turned a page. One day, in a future none of you could have imagined, someone will look at your bones, hold them in latex-gloved hands, scan the ridges of your teeth, trace the black line of soot between sediment layers, and say, here is where it almost ended, and here is where it began again. Sleep now. The worst is over. Until next time, the earth has died before, and it will die again. But not always in fire, not always with teeth and screaming skies. Sometimes the end creeps in gently, like frost on a window, like a breath that never exhales. So if you're still with me, still lying still, eyes closed, let's drift back further, much further, to a time before bones, before animals, before trees. The world is quiet, the sun is dim, and somewhere, far beneath the ice, you're still alive. You are not a thing that thinks, you are not even a thing that knows, but you are alive. You drift in warm water, shallow, sunlit, filled with minerals and silence. The sea you occupy is ancient, unbounded. The continents, if you can call them that, are barren slabs of rock, scattered like forgotten puzzle pieces. There is no green on land, no birds in the sky, no sound, save for the quiet gurgle of warm tides and the slow hiss of hydrothermal breath far below. You are a microbe, a cyanobacterium, specifically one of trillions. All of you, sisters, cousins, strangers, float together in great gelatinous sheets, undulating just beneath the surface. You have no legs, no mouth, no plan, but you have purpose. You take in sunlight. You exhale oxygen. You make the world. But you don't know that yet. There is no need for urgency. The water is warm, the sunlight steady. For billions of years, the earth has swayed gently from warm to cool and back again. Now it is warm again. Your ancestors survived the great bombardments, the poisonous skies, the iron seas. You are their child, nestled in a stable world, or so it seems. The continents creak beneath the ocean's weight. Pangaea hasn't even been born yet. Instead, there's Rodinia, a loosely connected mass of sterile rock stretching across the equator. Wind blasts over it constantly, unbroken by forest or fern. Sand scours bare hills. Rivers carry sediment into the sea, feeding you nutrients, feeding your cousins, feeding the mats that roll along the coastlines like sleeping skin. The air is thin. The sun is dimmer than it will be in your future, but it is enough. You rise and fall with the tides. photosynthesizing in your lazy upward cycles. You form stromatolites, reef-like lumps of living stone. You birth oxygen into the ocean, into the sky, day by day, puff by puff. The great oxygen revolution is behind you. You are not revolutionary anymore. You are background. And yet you are changing the planet. Still. Carbon dioxide in the atmosphere continues to fall. Your photosynthesis steals it slowly. Rocks weather in the rain, scrubbing CO toys even further. Volcanoes still erupt, still breathe gas into the sky, but they can't keep up. The world's thermostat is being tampered with, molecule by molecule, microbe by microbe, and you are one of the tamperers. Not that you care. You're just floating. But the effects are mounting. Clouds grow thicker in some places, thinner in others. Rain patterns change. Some oceans warm, others cool. At the poles, where few of your kind ever visit, the frost comes early. And this time, it doesn't leave. You share the sea with strange company. The other microbes don't think like you. Some don't even use sunlight. They live in the dark, metabolizing sulfur, iron, or methane. They don't float, they drift downward, clumping near vents and cracks in the ocean floor, glowing faintly in invisible chemical colors. Some of them hate oxygen. You are poison to them. Others tolerate you, live alongside your clouds, feed on your waste. None of you speak, none of you look, but you interact all the same. A long, slow war of digestion and division. Mutations bubble through your code. Genes cross and combine. Entire phyla appear and vanish. It doesn't matter, you remain. The sea is rich, warm, stratified. You stay in the sunlit shallows. The deeps are black, nutrient-laden, and often anoxic. If you drift too low, you suffocate. So you don't. Not often. Everything about your life is slow, except for reproduction. You multiply absurdly fast. Every few hours, you copy yourself. The ocean is filled with your clones, your daughters, your rivals. Sometimes you die in sunlight bursts, sometimes in mineral plumes, but it doesn't matter. There are always more of you. Sometimes you fuse, sometimes you swap genes. Sometimes you do something stranger, a kind of microbial dance of DNA that no one will understand for billions of years. The planet orbits quietly, the moon is closer, the tides are stronger, but it is a world without cities, without noise, just a cradle of salt, heat, and drifting life. And then, the balance shifts. You don't feel it, not at first, but the planet does. Temperatures fall, the frost spreads, the sun still rises, but its rays are weaker. Less carbon dioxide in the air means less trapping of heat. And the Earth, with its high albedo continents and lack of forest canopy, begins to reflect more light than it keeps. And then comes the feedback loop. Ice forms at the poles. Ice reflects sunlight. The reflected light cools the planet further, which makes more ice, which reflects more light. You get the idea. Glaciers begin to march. At first, it's beautiful. If you had eyes, you'd marvel. Sheets of white slowly consuming the land. Massive grinding tongues of ice pushing rock and silt across the continents. Oceans steaming as cold air brushes their surface. It's a slow motion death spiral, and you're too small to do anything about it. But you're not gone, not yet. Even as the temperatures drop, you continue to bloom. Perhaps more than ever, cooler waters can hold more nutrients, more oxygen. Some of you thrive, briefly, but the world's engines are sputtering. Ocean currents, those vital global arteries begin to slow. Less temperature difference, less mixing. Nutrients stop circulating. The deep gets deeper. The shallows get thinner. Oxygen begins to disappear, not because it isn't made, but because it isn't moved. And yet, you still photosynthesize, still breathe light, even when the sky is greyer than before, even when the sun feels like it's just out of reach. The glaciers keep marching. By now, the ice is a continent unto itself. From pole to pole, the world begins to crust over. Glacial sheets meet in the tropics. The oceans are sealed beneath kilometers of ice. A global tomb of glass and silence. This is not a snowstorm, it's a snowball, a planetary cocoon. Snowball Earth has begun. And you are still there, underneath it all, floating in a darkness thicker than night, but alive. You don't understand what's happening, but we do. Geologists and paleoclimatologists will one day uncover the scars. They'll read the signs in ancient rock, dropstones left by icebergs, glacial striations on ancient bedrock, isotopic signatures in carbonate rocks that whisper of a vanished ocean surface. They'll call it the Sturtian glaciation, or the Marinoan, depending on the timeline, depending on the layer. They'll find your fossilized mats buried under glacial till, flattened, compressed, beautiful in a bleak way. They'll argue about how bad it got. Was the entire ocean frozen solid, or just the surface? Was there a slush belt around the equator, or true ice from pole to pole? They won't know for sure, but you will, because you're there. The ice is not the end. Not yet. But the warmth you once knew is gone. The cradle has hardened, and your world, your quiet, drifting world, is now a prison. But you are still alive, and for now, that is enough. You survived the first chill, the dimming light, the slow thickening of ice at the poles. You kept floating, photosynthesizing, dividing in the half-light of the ancient sea. But now, it's no longer a question of change. The change is complete. The warm world is gone. The door has closed. And you're still here, buried alive beneath a blanket of frozen ocean. Welcome to Earth's longest, coldest nightmare. The world has gone silent. You don't know it in the way that a bird might know silence, or a mammal. But the pressure has changed. The light, already dim, has disappeared entirely. Your watery ceiling, a once translucent surface, glittering with sunlight and wind, is now a lid of ice, thick, opaque, cold beyond comprehension. The snowball has sealed shut. Above you, the ocean is no longer in motion. The waves have stilled. The surface has frozen into a continent-wide cap of ice, kilometers thick in places. Any storm that happens now rages in a stratosphere you will never touch. The seas do not hear thunder anymore. They do not feel rain. The entire planet has become a refrigerator. A slumbering orb, brilliant white from space, quietly dying beneath its own reflection. And still, you drift. You are one of the survivors. A microbe, perhaps photosynthetic, perhaps not. Many of your surface-dwelling siblings were entombed in the first freeze, frozen solid in stromatolites, trapped in sea ice, crushed beneath falling glaciers. But not you. You had already sunk, or been carried, or simply survived in one of the few places where life might persist. Below the ice, it's not a total darkness down here, not always. You're deeper than you were, but not so deep as to be lost to all light. Some rays, just a few, still leak through cracks in the ice, through fractures. through pressure-blasted openings along fault lines. The water beneath the snowball is not inert, not everywhere. There are still thermal plumes, still underwater volcanoes, still shifting tectonic plates far below, releasing heat and minerals and whispers of motion. Around these cracks, these black smoke of vents and hydrothermal seeps, life clings on. Bacterial colonies thrive in the heat, forming yellow-orange webs of sulfur-eating organisms. Others metabolize iron or methane. None of them need sunlight. They have their own engines now, engines of stone and magma. You are among them, or near them, or at least aware of them, if a microbe could be said to know its neighbours. You don't understand the physics of geothermal heat. You don't know you're on a planet spinning through cold space, circling a dying star, but you do feel warmth, and you move toward it. This warmth is life. Currents have changed. The grand global conveyor belt of warm and cold water, powered by wind, evaporation, and salinity differences, has slowed almost to stillness. The surface is frozen. The equator is covered in glaciers. The temperature difference that once drove circulation has collapsed. Instead, the ocean is layered like a cake. The water is denser now, saltier in places, diluted in others. You don't move like you used to. You're not churned by the tides or swept across entire oceans in loops. Now, movement is local, limited. You spiral through eddies around volcanic mounds. You follow microscopic gradients of warmth and chemical energy. The world has shrunk. Some of you are chemosynthetic now. You feast on sulfur, on iron. You don't miss the light. It was never yours to begin with. For you, this is normal, maybe even better. But others cling to the memory of the sun. Cyanobacteria that once basked in the open sea now cling to the undersides of the ice, where faint traces of light still penetrate. A thin lens of brine, where salt water hasn't yet frozen, forms between the ocean and the ice cap, creating a fragile band of possible survival. Here, in this cold twilight, they endure. They don't bloom, they don't thrive, but they don't vanish. And in a world like this, not vanishing is enough. Time slows. Millions of years pass. The glaciers stop expanding, not because they've reached a natural limit, but because they already cover nearly everything. From pole to pole, the planet is white, a perfect mirror. A reflective, frozen, breathless marble. Rodinia, your supercontinent, is splitting. It fractures, drifts. Tectonics continue beneath the ice, like restless sleepers beneath heavy blankets. When it moves, earthquakes send pulses through the seafloor. Lava spills into the ocean, cooling instantly, creating new land beneath the ice. And with each outgassing eruption, carbon dioxide leaks into the air. The only thing left, breathing above the ice, is the planet itself. CO2 accumulates. Slowly, painfully slowly. There are no trees to absorb it. No oceans exposed to absorb it. No rain to wash it down into rock. The earth is a sealed chamber, and the volcanoes don't stop breathing. For millions of years, greenhouse gases build. But beneath the ice, you remain unaware. Your world is colder now than it has ever been, but it is also stable. No more sudden crashes in temperature, no new surges of ice, just constancy. A locked-in glacial state that feels eternal. You do not know that above you, in the black void of space, the ice is beginning to lose the battle. Not yet. Below the ice, you evolve. Mutations are rare, but given enough time, even the improbable becomes inevitable. Some of your descendants develop better heat tolerance. Others specialize in feeding off the chemical waste of yet other microbes. Some form colonies, thin mats, primitive webs of interdependence. Eukaryotes, larger, more complex cells, are beginning to stir in small numbers. They're slow, inefficient, but they persist. The gene swapping continues. Life diversifies quietly under the frozen shell. No predator, no herbivore, just endless forms of microbial endurance. The earth is not dead, it is dreaming. Occasionally, a catastrophe comes even to the deep sea. An undersea volcano erupts too violently. A gas pocket explodes. A vent collapses. Your colony dies. You are scattered. Some perish. Some drift until they find warmth again. Others don't. But it is never total extinction. The ocean is vast. Even sealed in ice, it cradles life like a memory it cannot forget. And so the cycle continues. Birth, division, drift, death. You feel none of it. You simply exist. And, outside, the greenhouse builds. Above the glaciers, the world has changed. Carbon dioxide has reached levels not seen in hundreds of millions of years. The planet is choking on volcanic breath, and at last, the trap breaks. Melting begins. Not fast, not at first, but once the process starts, it accelerates violently. The ice, reflective and stable, begins to soften at the equator. Sunlight, that once bounced back into space, now slips through. Dark oceans reappear. They absorb heat. They melt more ice. Which reveals more ocean? Which absorbs more heat? The reverse of the snowball begins. And down in the depths, you feel the first stirrings of motion. A pulse of warmth, a shimmer of change. The oceans are waking up. You don't yet know what's coming. The melt will be catastrophic. Sea levels will rise in surges. Supercharged weather will return. The ocean's chemistry will be thrown into chaos as sunlight returns and new nutrients flood the upper layers. But for now, all you feel is movement. Currents are shifting. Light is returning. The snowball is dying. And you are still here. The stirrings of change have begun. A whisper of warmth. A tremor in the deep. But change does not come swiftly on this planet of ancient rhythms. The glaciers still hold the world in their teeth. Above, the melt is in its infancy. Below, you continue to drift. The ocean is not thawed yet. It will be millions of years before the world above sees green again. Until then, there is only the wait. The cold, endless wait. Time, in this world, is not a line. It's a breath held for millions of years. You are part of it now. One of the silent things that drifts between thermal plumes and frozen ceilings. You live in a room with no windows, no clocks, no exits. And yet, somehow, the room is full. The deep sea is not dead. It is teeming, in its own slow, whispered way. You are a bacterium, or maybe something more complex now. It's hard to say. You've changed a little. Your enzymes have adjusted. You're more tolerant of the cold, more efficient with the sparse energy. You metabolize differently than your ancestors. And your children are not identical copies anymore. Not quite. In this sealed world, evolution doesn't stop. It just forgets to hurry. You dwell near warmth. Hydrothermal vents dot the seafloor like constellations turned inward, each a tiny sun for life in exile. Around these cracks, chemical-rich plumes rise like ghostly columns. Sulfur, methane, iron, minerals from the Earth's burning heart, bleeding into an otherwise still ocean. And around those columns, life. Strange life. Here, microbial mats pile on one another like wet tissue paper. Tube-shaped worms and primitive filter feeders root themselves to the rocks. Their anatomy is bizarre, their chemistry alien, but they are alive, and they are your neighbours. Some of your cousins form symbiotic colonies with these larger creatures. Others ride their currents. A few even live inside them. No eyes, no spines, just mouths, membranes, cilia, and chemical hunger. A zoo of shadows. Elsewhere, beneath the thick glacial ceiling, there are pockets of survivable space. Brine lenses, subglacial lakes, cracks warmed just enough by geothermal seepage to prevent total freeze. In these places, light never reaches. Photosynthesis is impossible. But chemosynthesis, chemical life, is strong. And it is here that the strangest drift of all begins. Over time, some cells specialize. They change shape. They lengthen. Some begin forming internal compartments. Others start working together in simple structures, colonial blobs that float, divide, reform. Cooperation, primitive as it is, has arrived. In one corner of the planet, near a deep fracture in the ocean crust, a eukaryote is born. It has a nucleus. It stores its information differently. It ingests rather than absorbs. It is larger, more fragile, yes, but also more flexible. It is not a revolution, not yet, but it is the seed of one. Still, all around you, the cold rains. The glaciers have not retreated. The snowball earth has slackened its grip, but not released it. Icebergs still carve from cliffs of frozen sea, falling with no sound into a frozen world. Mountains grind beneath their own weight. Rocks crack from pressure, not temperature. The air above remains a ghost. The skies are empty of birds. The land is still utterly lifeless, bare rock and ice, from coast to coast. The only forests are microbial mats under kilometres of water. If any aliens had passed by during this time, they would have seen a planet gone quiet. Beautiful, perhaps, pale and pristine, but utterly sealed. And they would have left, never guessing what slept inside. You, meanwhile, continue to wait. You divide, drift, die, divide again. Whole microcosms of life are born and extinguished in the space between volcanic ridges. Trophic webs form in the deep dark, predators that sense molecules, prey that mask themselves in chemical cloaks. Competition, not in speed or sight, but in subtlety and resilience. Predation, even here, exists. But it is silent, glacial, a war of diffusion and reaction. Some of your kind cling to the underside of the ice itself. There, faint bands of light occasionally filter through thinner patches, maybe only during brief periods of localized melt. There, the last cyanobacteria still persist. Photosynthesis is slow, desperate, but it happens. They form algae-like mats under the ice, whispering out oxygen, molecule by molecule. These microbes are not dominant. They are barely alive, but they are the last link to the surface world. And they are the ones who will wake it. Meanwhile, the oceans deepen in mystery. Carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus all circulate in strange ways, trapped in this sealed system. Nutrient cycles stretch, elongate, kink. Iron accumulates in places. Sulfur blooms in others. Layers of ocean become stratified by ancient chemical signatures. The water has been still so long that it stratifies like wine in a bottle. Some areas are rich in life, others are biochemical deserts. And you learn, if learning can be applied to life without thought, to drift where the gradients are kindest. This selective pressure sculpts you. You become specialized, not just a microbe, but a survivor of extremes. Extremophiles are no longer rare, they are the norm. Life on Earth has learned to love the cold, the dark, the stillness. It has adapted not just to endure the tomb, but to make a home in it. Above you, the CO2 continues to build. Volcanoes, patient, tireless, keep breathing out. No trees absorb it, no soil traps it, no rain erodes it. The atmosphere thickens invisibly with heat-trapping gas. Eventually, there will be a tipping point. The white will melt, the snowball will break. But that day still lies far in your future. For now, the pressure builds. Quietly, dangerously. And below, you dream in stasis. Occasionally, life plays a trick. A population booms, briefly. Maybe a vent gets hotter. A mineral spike occurs. Microbes bloom, form mats, create new chemical layers. But soon they crash. The conditions change again. The ocean, like a fickle god, gives and takes. Yet, with every boom and bust, something new remains. A mutation, a structure, a survival trait. Over time, the living become more complex, not through ambition, but attrition. Those who survive are shaped by the cold, not tougher, not smarter, just better at being patient. Then, one day, not a special day, just a normal one, the under-ice currents grow slightly stronger. The pressure changes. Thermal plumes become more active. A shimmer of warmth pulses through the brine channels. It is not the great thaw, not yet. But something is shifting. Far above, the ice begins to thin at the equator. Sunlight returns to the sea. The atmosphere, saturated with greenhouse gases, can no longer keep the cold. Temperatures rise, first in decimal points, then in surges. And beneath it all, you feel the ocean tremble. The great wait is ending. The wait has lasted millions of years. You've endured stillness so absolute that motion itself became legend. You've adapted, evolved, survived in a tomb of ice. But now, at last, something has shifted. The darkness above begins to weaken. The weight lessens. Light, warmth, and movement are returning, not in torrents, but in pulses. You can feel it, deep in your cytoplasm. The snowball is breaking. The thaw has begun. The change begins not with fire or flood, but with a flicker. A tiny, almost imperceptible flicker. A faint beam of sunlight, once hopelessly bounced back into the void, now lands on the surface of the ice and stays. It lingers, warms, penetrates, a small victory over reflectivity. The mirror cracks, and somewhere above the sealed ocean you drift in, a drop of ice begins to melt. Not much, but enough to notice. You are one cell among trillions, and yet the water feels different, just a whisper warmer, just a bit more motion. The stasis you've known for geological ages is rippling. And this time, the change does not stop. The sun has not grown stronger. The Earth's orbit hasn't changed dramatically. What has changed is the air itself. CO2, exhaled for eons by volcanoes and trapped by the ice above, has finally reached the tipping point. The greenhouse effect kicks in like a belated breath. Heat can no longer escape. It builds, slowly at first, then faster. The atmosphere thickens with moisture. Steam curls into the sky above the glaciers. Clouds form. Rain falls, acidic, dense, relentless. And snow, once piling high in the upper atmosphere, now melts in mid-air. Everywhere, the melt accelerates. At the poles, glaciers begin to collapse. At the equator, ice sheets fracture like glass under a blowtorch. Entire slabs of frozen ocean the size of continents detach and slough into the sea, displacing unimaginable volumes of water. The planet's albedo, the reflectivity that kept it cold, plummets. Dark oceans re-emerge, absorb sunlight, and warm faster still. It's a runaway reaction, a planetary jailbreak, and you're right in the middle of it. Underneath, the brine pockets where you've lived for so long begin to swell. Ice ceilings thin into translucent veils. Cracks split open into corridors of blue light. For the first time in tens of millions of years, rays of full sunlight pierce through the ocean's upper layers. And the microbes rejoice. Cyanobacteria, dormant in shadow, bloom in ecstatic waves. The chloroplasts of single-celled algae awaken like startled gods. Photosynthesis surges with unprecedented force. Oxygen floods back into the ocean, into you. And you, yes you, begin to divide faster, to swim even. You propel yourself upward through a chaos of nutrients, of motion, of competing life. The deep, slow world is over. The rush has begun. You rise through waters now surging, with strange, new turbulence. Currents crash against each other as the thermal gradient restabilizes. Layers mix. Cold and warm, salt and fresh, dead and living, all blend in a planetary swirl. And in that blend, a renaissance begins. Eukaryotes, those fussy, complex cells that spent millennia clinging to warm seeps, explode in number. They form colonies, filaments, discs, sheets. Some even wrap around smaller cells, not to eat, but to use. Mitochondria awaken. Symbiosis flowers. The first multicellular plans begin, not as ambition, but as necessity. Size becomes an advantage. Shape becomes a strategy. Evolution accelerates. Above, the glaciers retreat in defeat. Land emerges. Naked continents, scrubbed to bedrock by ice, begin to steam. Rainwater, now flowing freely, carves valleys and channels through granite that hasn't seen the sky in 60 million years. The air thickens with greenhouse gases and the smell of mineral-rich vapour. Volcanoes continue to belch, but now their breath is met by forests of microbial mats, swarming the land with hunger. Everything is feeding. Everything is blooming. You don't know what you are anymore. You've changed too many times. You're not quite the same as your ancestor under the ice. You're longer, or rounder, or possess an organelle you didn't have before. Maybe you're part of a chain now, or a membrane-bound cluster. Maybe you're part of something bigger. An organism with coordinated parts, not just atoms bumping around. Your DNA is no longer simple. It's a history of winters, of near death, of comeback. You are a survivor, and the earth is waking with you. At the equator, shallow seas turn brilliant green with algae. Phytoplankton form dense, living fogs. Oxygen levels soar. Methane, once dominant, retreats. The snowball Earth is officially over. But the aftershocks are only beginning. The Great Thaw rewrites the chemistry of the oceans. In the chaos of reoxygenation, once dormant compounds explode into new reactions. Iron oxidizes in torrents. Sulfides become acids. Nutrient loops tangle, then stabilize, and into that bubbling cauldron steps complexity. Animals, in their most primitive forms, begin to appear. Tiny, soft-bodied things, worm-like, blob-like, blind and breathless, but moving with purpose, grazing, filtering, eating you. Yes, after all these eons of cold cooperation, predation has returned, and you're on the menu. Your death isn't cruel, it's barely personal. A larger protist engulfs you with pseudopodia and dissolves your membranes. Your mitochondria flicker and fade. Your last contribution is as calories. But your genes live on. Others, like you, survive. The web grows thicker, and Earth, once a sealed snow globe, now boils with life. Jungles do not yet exist, nor fish, nor limbs or leaves or lungs, but the seeds are planted. The cryogenian period ends not with extinction, but with a garden. A microbial garden that learned to wait, to endure, to bloom under ice. And so the ice melts. The earth breathes again. What was once still begins to stir. And you, whether you are a drifting cell or a sleeping dreamer, have seen the world come back from the edge. From the darkness, from the cold, from silence. You're still here. Sleep well, traveller of deep time. Good night.